Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth Podcast. I'm Jack Smith,
I'm Srikar.
And I'm Anish Gupta.
and I think Anish has a little bit of a little story time to fill us in
Yeah.
on before we get into this episode.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I got COVID. Sucks, but yeah. So I'm currently in the isolation dorms, a little bit of a different setup, as you can tell. Just kind of a little bit of my room. It's been rough, but I think it just I tested positive yesterday, so I'll be out next Friday. So yeah, I just got to deal with these next 9 days.
If you
And
can't tell the dedication coming in, the day after
course.
tested positive for COVID and bringing you guys
staying
NFL.
isolated, this is some good therapy to talk about some football. So
Well, yeah, we're excited to talk about football. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, actually, because last week was a big roller coaster week. We had some teams that came back with some big performances, some other teams that kind of fell off and we got to start worrying about. And then, of course, we had Monday Night Football with maybe the weirdest game that we've seen in the last couple of years. Like, would you agree with that?
yeah, I was actually at a social with the sports analytics club that I'm in. We all were just watching the game. We're like, what the hell is going on? I mean, it was crazy the amount of times they were running the football, but yeah, I thought that was just so unexpected.
Well,
I'm in Syracuse. So that the wind here is not as bad as it was in Buffalo, but my God, it is windy. It is windy. It was football weather, and obviously, give me football weather. I like it. But interesting game though.
Yeah. Before you get into your takeaway, I want you to go first too. I think more unexpected, the Lions won a football game, and none of us picked it as our takeaway. But I felt like if there's any of the 50 people that pay attention to the episodes every week, if there's just one Lions fan out there, we have not talked about the Lions all year. So I feel like we kind of owe them a little bit of their dues. Talking about the Lions win. Anish, you want to start us off?
Yeah, quick Cal to USC connection for the win. Despite Cal beating USC.
I told you it was gonna happen. Like, this dude's been rubbing my face all week. I literally told you it was gonna happen.
Wait, I think this is the first episode since that.
We're good. We're still rocking out.
I have cloud Jack for the last 5 days about it. I think I've sent him the final score 16 times. But which is ironic because I think I caught COVID from the game. But you know what? Whatever. They beat them. And yeah, so quick Cal USC connection for the win. But hey, Goff played well, and I think the Lions finally won a close game, right? I think I believe they were they're 1-6 now in those close one possession games. So it's good to see them finally get it done and close the deal. That's a huge step forward for a rookie head coach, which I think Dan Campbell needs to stay. I think this is something that he can build on.
I think watching that final play and after it ended, I immediately thought that was some of the worst defense I have ever seen on a final play of the game ever. Mike Zimmer decides to come out in the softest zone I've ever seen with the game on the line. Dancer's 5 yards back of the end zone. And you gotta ask him to run up to Amon-Ra St. Brown and make the play there. You have to guard the end zone. The front of the end zone is what you need to be guarding. And, they let players get in front of them. And I think that's 100% on Mike Zimmer. Obviously, Dancer does deserve some blame. It was on him. But I mean, the way the defense was set up, it was set up to fail. It was a terrible call. I don't understand why you'd go with that defense on the final play of the game against Detroit, no less. You got to keep everything, not behind you, but at least guard the end zone. And that's, they didn't do that in the slightest. So it was a very bizarre ending to a great win for Dan Campbell. As Anish said, it was a great moment for the Detroit community, obviously, coming off the Oxford shooting. And it was great to see Dan Campbell in that press conference, using that game ball as a tribute to that community. So I think it was a great moment for Detroit, and I think it's a great win for the Lions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Minnesota defense on that play was horrible. But I don't want to take anything away from Lions fans and the Lions in general. They've been through just so much this year. Anish mentioned, they've lost so many games on just either the last play or one of the last plays. Like, you look back to the Ravens game, I think specifically is the one that really sticks out. They should have won that game. Multiple just dagger plays in a row and then losing on the Justin Tucker field goal. But they finally had the ball last. They went down. Amon-Ra St. Brown scored it. It was your boy Dantzler, though, Anish.
That one hurts. I know. That one hurts. I'm high on him, and
Yeah.
That one hurt.
Going back to your point about USC though, I don't want to let this slide because you never actually answered my question in the group chat. First of all, so that's the first time Cal's beat SC in Berkeley since
I've only been a Cal fan for 1 year. So
I know.
As far
Let
as
me just
I know, I'm 1-0 in the years I've been a Cal fan. So
fine. Last time it happened in Berkeley was like 2003, the year I was born. Do you know what happened immediately after that loss? You never answered my question in the group chat.
they probably lost like 16 straight or something. Like
No. USC rattled off 30 plus straight wins in a row.
That's crazy. Yet they've still never made the college.
History does tend to repeat itself. History does tend to repeat itself. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Go Orange.
Starts off.
Yeah. I think Jack's getting a little bit too hopeful. I can't wait to see USC not make the playoff and then, because they haven't made it yet. So
Still haven't gotten back to me on that bet either.
I'm thinking about it. I still am. You're right. So the bet is, maybe if you guys can let us know in the comments, it's will USC make the playoff while we're both in college? So in the next 3 seasons?
3 seasons.
Sophomore year, our junior year, and our senior year. So I think for 2, I would be confident in betting for 2. The third one is what I'm a little bit unsure about, but obviously we'll think a little bit more about that bet, and we'll see.
You got to get back to me.
As a Syracuse fan, every time they talk about USC and Cal, I always just have to sub myself out of the conversation because I can't talk football.
No one cares about Syracuse.
Didn't they? I think Syracuse had a better record than both SC and Cal this year, right?
I think we tied. We were a
basketball school.
Yeah.
We tied with Cal, and we had a better record than SC, which is absolutely insane.
That's slightly sad.
So we're
only
both
a little bit sad.
We're both 5 and 7. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's rough.
Yeah.
We're a basketball school though, ranked 16th in the country.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get there for basketball season. But
we're not a basketball podcast, so let's.
No, that's true. You guys don't care about basketball. You want to hear about football. Srikar, you want to start us off with your takeaway? We'll go.
Let's do
around
it.
The other way.
Let's
I'll
do
go
it.
last this week.
All right, let's do it. Last week in our pick segment, when we were picking the Ravens-Steelers game, I immediately jumped and said the Ravens are frauds because they were getting off a string of ridiculous wins, whether it was that Vikings game, the Lions game, as Jack mentioned, the Chiefs, what else? The Colts, the Browns. They were just getting the weirdest wins possible, and eventually I felt like they were going to run out of luck, and it definitely happened in Pittsburgh, that final play. Mark Andrews off the tip of his fingers. That could be the play that defines, the rest of the season for the Ravens because they're trying to push for that 1 seed. That probably just took them out of it. And now you are in a wide open AFC North where every win, every loss matters. So looking at the schedule, I don't think anybody has a tougher schedule than the Ravens. You got rematches with the Bengals and Browns. You got to host the Packers, Rams, Steelers again. None are going to be easy. And even though, they're a solid team with a good coaching staff, Lamar Jackson is a unique talent, as I said before. I don't know if I don't think they're going to get that 1 seed by any means. I don't know what seed they're going to get in the AFC. Will they even make the playoffs? I don't know. Because all year, Baltimore has just lived on the edge. And now they were on the other side of it. And now with the tougher part of their schedule coming up, you got to wonder if this team is really for real. And honestly, right now, I'm not on the Ravens hype train, especially with them just losing Marlon Humphrey. They were already a bad pass defense, but now it's just that much worse. So I definitely think the Ravens are frauds. And, I don't really see this team making a deep playoff run in January.
Cool. Yeah, I was waiting for your quote unquote takeaway from the game. So I guess it's the Ravens are fraud and you don't see a deep run. I agree with you. I think obviously it's in specific to the play. The inside receiver is supposed to kind of rub TJ for a split second, and he doesn't do that. And that's kind of the reason why TJ was able to disrupt the pass. Obviously, Lamar could have still gotten it off. But, it's those little, tiny niche type of things that just, can cause a disruptive play like that. So, yeah, it sucks. But I think they live with that call. I think that's something that, would win you more games than it'll lose you. And just, Ravens culture, they've always been aggressive. They've always been this, pound it team. And I live with the call, especially because you didn't have your corners and Steelers had 17 points in the fourth quarter. They had all the momentum. In terms of the Ravens long term, I did kind of, obviously Srikar talked about specifically the Ravens, but I think in terms of the AFC North, right, because your takeaway was that you don't really see this team making a deep playoff run or even making the playoffs. I mean, all 4 teams are within 2 games of each other. And if you look at their schedules, I told these guys this, but I just thought it was a crazy, crazy thing that all 4 teams have to play teams that are 500 or better for the rest of the season, all of them. And the only one that's not 500 or better is literally tonight, Pittsburgh at Minnesota. And the rest of Pittsburgh's 4 games are teams that are 500 or better. The rest of Cleveland's 5 games, 500 or better. Cincinnati, 500 or better. Baltimore also 500 or better, as Srikar mentioned. So anything can happen in this race, and it's really just, who emerges week 18. And the thing is, as Jack mentioned in the beginning of the year, I think we might only get one AFC North team just because they're going to kind of beat each other out. And I think the winner of the AFC North is going to be the 4 seed, which, kind of sucks considering that, all 4 of these teams are good, but it's just how, competitive the AFC has been and just how competitive their schedules have been.
I'll take it back. I do think they're going to make the playoffs, but deep playoff run, that's still a take.
I think I'm not ready to make a claim about whether the Ravens make the playoffs or not. I think, and I wasn't saying preseason that I thought only one team was going to say. It was in that hot take segment. I wasn't completely sure, but it was definitely an idea that popped into my mind, a possibility a team like the Ravens doesn't make the playoffs. And this was kind of the reason that I looked at it. I'm like, okay, it's definitely a possibility because they just haven't been extremely consistent. They do face a tough schedule. And the style of football they play, if it doesn't start off, going out well, especially, in a game against a good defense, like specifically their offense, if they're not able to run the ball at the start and you start putting them behind the chains, behind the count, behind on the scoreboard, it's tough for them to come back and win football games. With the stretch that they're on, it's not even that they're playing teams that are 500 or better. I mean, they're playing some of the most elite teams in the NFL. You name the Packers and you name the Rams. Those are 2 NFC powerhouses at the tops, near the tops of their division or at the top. I don't know. It's going to be a tough task. I definitely don't think the Ravens are going to get the 1 seed. And funny enough, we might end up having Kansas City at the 1 seed, which I think would just be so funny after everything that's happened this year.
I know. Don't rule out New England, though.
No, definitely not. I mean, New England's there right now. It's kind of tough to rule them out. I think I talked with Srikar before the episode. I draw like comparisons with 2 teams, the Ravens and the Bills. I feel like they're in pretty similar situations. Struggling near the top of their division still, though. Both just lost their star cornerback. And Srikar distinguished, like, the Bills had a great defense before, the Ravens really didn't. But they're both teams that I have genuine questions about. They have possible chances of missing the playoffs. And well, I think the easy answer right now is saying, you know what, they'll figure it out. They'll get a couple wins. They'll make the playoffs. I still just don't think that even if that happens, you can have much confidence in them going into the playoffs. And from what we've seen from both those teams the last couple of weeks, specifically the Ravens, because they've looked like crap, especially on offense over the past couple of weeks. There's just not much confidence there with me. And so it's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on, definitely going to have to monitor because these are 2 teams that are supposed to be running the AFC. And right now they're kind of taking a dip.
I think we got to talk about, Lamar, because the Lamar MVP chants have gone really, really silent. And
I don't know if there's MVP chance for anybody at this point. I mean,
I think it's going to be Tom. This happened in
Tom or Aaron.
2017, right? Once Wentz got hurt, it was like no one else. So it was like, all right, we'll just give it to Tom because he's been efficient. But yeah, I think, again, under 20 points in 5 out of the last 6 games. This is a Ravens team that literally has won by playing well situationally. I think and that just goes to show good coaching and, disciplined football. I think that's
in the past month, Lamar has thrown 9 touchdowns and 12 picks. Just keep that in mind.
He
has been awful.
I'm not going to say like it's full on regression, but his picks have been increasing each year by like and now it's becoming like
and they look worse. Like some of the ones he threw, especially against Cleveland, that one,
he
missed Mark Andrews by a solid 5 yards.
Yeah,
that first pick in that Pittsburgh game was awful.
That was just. I mean, again, I think it's the whole thing of where Kyler and Russ can run when they can. Lamar runs when he wants, and it's like he's relying on his his legs way too much, and he's asking his offensive line to protect him for like 5 to 7 seconds. Like that's just not going to happen, especially because you're getting pushed back. There's a reason why Brady and Rodgers always have quote unquote good old lines, no matter the depth. It's because they only have to protect him for like less than 2 seconds because they get the ball out so quick. I think that's why. Lamar sometimes just doesn't put his team in position to win. And he's been great, don't get me wrong, but he also has these moments where you question, right? Is him being on the field really helping your team right now?
I also think just from the start of the season, he's been dealing with key injuries everywhere. He's been asked to do too much, and now we're just seeing the wear and tear of that as the season drags on. He's been doing a lot worse. And I think it's mainly because he's he's being asked to be Superman when he's really not. He needs help. He needs help, and he's just not getting it. He has a great coaching staff, but I think the injuries are just taking a toll on him.
Yep.
Yeah, he has weapons, and he has way more weapons than we've seen before. I mean, he's had seasons with far less than what he has right now. When you bring in Bateman, Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, Devonta Freeman's actually looked like a pretty serviceable running back. And I was telling them earlier, it makes me just think about what we could have had with J.K. Dobbins this year before that injury.
I know.
He would have been amazing.
He would have been so good. But so I don't want to say like he doesn't have anything, but you're right. I mean, injuries to Ronnie Stanley, they traded away Orlando Brown in the offseason. The defense, I feel like, especially, is kind of what's taken the hit injury wise. They lost Marcus Peters before the season.
They're still playing. They're still playing pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, the only bad quarter I've seen them play in the last,
the Ravens defense.
Yeah, I mean, look,
their pass defenses.
They allowed
awful.
10 points to Cleveland. They allowed they made enough plays in that Bears game, and then obviously in Pittsburgh. Aside from that's what I'm saying. The only quarter I've really seen that was bad was the fourth quarter of last game.
I feel like that Browns game was more of the Browns offense being bad than the Ravens defense playing good.
I'll give you that, but I think it just boils down to situational football. That's why, and that's something that the Ravens still do well. And I think, because of that, they should still be the favorites in this AFC North. And also they have a 2-game lead on Cleveland, I think a 1.5-game lead on Pittsburgh, and a 1-game lead on Cincy. So they should still be the favorites, but I mean, you can't really put your stock into this team right now.
Yeah. I think the problem with that is if the Ravens stay in the playoffs, someone else from the AFC North stays in the playoffs, you got Buffalo not falling out, your Colts might get left out, Anish.
Hey, all I know is, listen, you don't want to face this team right now.
I don't.
Yeah, you don't.
That's for sure.
Man, Wentz will finally make his playoff debut. Oh, man.
He's not going to make the playoffs. That's the thing.
Okay.
Who's falling out? Who's falling out? That's what I'm saying. Like,
but if Buffalo loses to the Bucks, we're going to talk about that.
They're 8-6. Yeah, they'll be 8-6 if they lost to the Bucks.
They'll be 7-6, and the Colts are 7-6. Who has tiebreaker?
The Bills will be 8-6. They're 8-5 right now.
No, they're 7-5.
Buffalo needs to go 11-6.
Pretty sure they're 8-5
to make the playoffs. In my opinion,
the Bills have had their bye week, so they're 7-5.
Yeah. Why did I think they were 8-4 going into last week?
Nah, that's the Pats.
That's the Patriots. Okay.
Yeah. Bills are 7-5. If they lose, they'll be 7-6. The Colts are 7-6. The Colts have tiebreaker.
That's true, but I don't know. We'll see.
Bills could definitely miss that. They don't have tiebreaker against the Chargers. They don't have, or not the Chargers. Who am I thinking of?
The Colts.
The Colts.
The Pats, obviously. So far, at least.
Yeah.
But if there's a tie at 10-7, I don't think they're winning a lot of tiebreakers there.
No, I don't think so. That's like, you raise it.
Of the win percentage, I think, in conference games. But
you raised the point last week that they could miss the playoffs. And when I looked at it, I was like, it definitely makes sense. And one of those teams, like one team's going to have to fall out right now for the Colts to go in.
There are going to be like 3 teams that are like really good that would probably make it, another year, that just won't make it.
Or would make it to be one of the higher seeds in the NFC.
Yeah.
And then
right now they're going to be a solid 3 team. Because look, there's still 12 teams that are 500 or better still. And look, Miami is worth a mention too. So really there's 13 teams in this hunt still.
13. I mean, it's everyone except for Houston, New York, and Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. But, we'll see.
There's going to be some great teams left out. Like, I want to see the Chargers make it. I want to see the Bengals make it. I want to see the Colts make it. The Dolphins definitely, they're playing like a playoff team right now. And, I mean, it's echoing what we said last week. Like, a good team, or in this case, probably 3 good teams are going to get left out, and it's going to suck. Because we know that
there's still hope.
Matchups would be elite.
There's still hope. Browns and Colts.
The Browns are not making the playoffs. They're out of the bubble.
There's still hope.
And that's my fault. Yeah. I do apologize for that. That's all on me.
Yeah. It's okay. Now you're out on them. There's still 5 weeks. You're out on them. So
I am out on them. Unless Baker's healthy.
No, don't. He's not. Nope.
Baker at 100%. Browns in the Browns train again, man.
He's at 40. All right. You want to head into my takeaway?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to switch it over to the NFC. And my takeaway is that basically we're going to see 2 NFC East teams make the playoffs. One is for sure going to be the Cowboys. And the other one is, I think, between Washington and Philly. And as of right now, I'm going to go with Washington. This is a team that Srikar and I picked to beat the Raiders. And this is a team riding a 4-game win streak. And they're not technically out of the division win because they do play the Cowboys twice and they're only behind them by 2 games.
Yep.
But I doubt that they finish the season on a 9-game win streak. That's just, impossible. But they've been playing great. Their defense has finally been looking like the defense that we've seen. I know they got a little bit bailed out by that deep pass that, could have been called for pass interference, but whatever. They kind of walked. A win is a win. Taylor Heineke, again, he's a glorified playmaker. Like, he makes plays. I mean, he's like 6 foot, not the biggest guy, not the strongest arm, but he does enough to, win these games. And for Washington, this is a team that honestly, any NFC team does not really want to face right now.
I agree. I think the Cowboys are definitely going to make it. And I think if it came down to Washington and Philly, I think Washington's just the better team right now. And you mentioned Taylor Heineke. I think I said it last week. He's just a very frisky quarterback because there's some plays where he just wows you and you're like, wow, Taylor Heineke. And then there's some plays where you're like, oh, it's Taylor Heineke. So he's a very weirdly inconsistent but good QB. And I think with how the NFC looks right now, I think Washington is going to make it in the wild card. I think the Niners, they took a bad loss, but I still think the standings favor them making it. Sure.
I mean, Philly could still technically make it.
They could, but
I think Minnesota has a better
the Rams are locked in as the 5.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah. I forgot.
So there's 2 spots.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be Washington and SF. But you guys want to know Washington's next 5 games? They're all
easy.
NFC East opponents.
It's so easy.
Yeah. That's why coming into the year.
No, it's not easy. It's not.
It looked easy coming into the year. And that's why everyone's saying like, oh, Terry McLaurin, fantasy football playoff god. And now everyone's looking at it. It's like the NFC
5 division opponents is very hard. That is very hard, especially that you have to go Cowboys, Eagles. That's very hard.
Yeah,
I know the Eagles aren't the best, and I know the Cowboys are good.
But they're going to be. I mean, the Eagles
it's just
have
weird.
Everything to gain in those games.
It's weird scheduling to have all these NFC East games happen
in
a 5-game streak.
They always do this. Like Wentz with the Eagles in 2019 had to play 4 straight divisional games. So it's like they always do this. And even with Cleveland this year, right? 8 of their final 10 games are going to be against the division. So.
Yeah, some of the scheduling things that have happened recently make no sense. Like, why are the Browns playing the Ravens in back-to-back games?
Yeah, it's
like, is that really unavoidable?
Yeah, facts. That's so easy to change. But this is a huge stretch for Washington, and also it's a huge stretch for Philly, right? Because Philly's got 4 games left. They're going to be on a bye this week, right? What does this mean for Hurts, right? This is kind of an NFC East takeaway, but I think they immediately get out the bye and they play Washington, so they're definitely going to be having their eyes on this Cowboys Washington game, which this one's got some implications because if Washington wins, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about that later in our picks.
Yet again. But again, Washington has these playmakers, right? And I think Gibson is finally showing what we expected of him. Beginning of this season, I think he's finally healthy. Obviously, he had that shin injury, and now he's looking like the running back we all know and love. Terry McLaurin, as much as I love him, there's some games where he just goes blank. But again, he's going to draw double teams. He's a valuable receiver. And I think, Curtis Samuel, I think they got to use him a bit more now that, he's out of IR. He's a hybrid weapon. So use him. But, only time will tell. Again, all of these 2 divisions, the NFC East and the AFC North, there are going to be some big implications in the next 5 weeks.
Washington's schedule is also brutal from a traveling perspective.
True.
Yeah.
Because you play at home at Dallas, you travel to Philly, after that travel to Dallas, come back home, and then travel to New York. It's not horrible.
It's not horrible considering they're in Maryland, but
it's horrible. But when you consider it's all divisional games, I think it makes it that much worse.
Yeah, because the stakes are going to be there. It's going to be a stressful.
That's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem.
It's a stressful 4-week stretch for sure.
It's 3 road division games. You got to face all 3 crowds: New York, Dallas, and Philly, and.
I think the problem comes with scheming because you play the teams that close together. It's not like you have time to install huge new packages, stuff that they haven't seen by the time you play them in 2 more weeks. So it's going to be an interesting balance, say, especially with Dallas. They played Dallas this week. They got to go out and try and beat Dallas but save some things because they got to beat Dallas again in 2 weeks, or they got to go out and try and beat Dallas again in 2 weeks.
You're right. Like, see,
probably
like,
not
yeah,
with the same attack.
This is a very weird. Like, you're telling me
I don't
5
get
of their
it.
6 divisional matchups are going to be at the end of the.
That's something for the schedule makers, I guess. Jack, you want to get into your takeaway?
Yeah.
No, I want to talk about Washington just for a quick second,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I think I never got to say this. I do agree. I think that they right now I choose them in a playoff over Philly if I'm predicting how the season plays out. And I think the crazy part is, and it was a takeaway of mine on an Instagram post a couple weeks ago, their defense has really started to shine like we thought they would this season. The beginning of the year, one of the craziest things that was completely unexpected was the Washington defense looking nothing like what we thought it would. Like they were one of the, if not the worst defense in the NFL. And then for some reason they lose Chase Young and they've started to play, it's obviously not correlated, but they've started to play like one of the best defenses in football. And right now, I think those NFC East games, like we see them every year, they're going to come down to defense. And I think that right now they have the best defense in that division, definitely better than Philly. And Philly's a little bit one-dimensional, and I feel like if you go up against a bad defense, it'll tend to work. That's why they're able to run over.
I think Philly's just inconsistent.
Yeah,
on one hand they'll destroy Denver, and then next week they'll lose to New York.
Hurts himself is inconsistent.
Yep.
Yeah. So
he's had one game above 200 passing yards in the past like 2 months, I think.
Yeah,
it's absurd. But I think that just the Washington defense, I trust them right now, which is it's really great because they have so much potential. And I think they can even continue to add to that in free agency and the draft. So it's good to see them back on the right track. Heineke, he's a mixed bag. 1 week you hear announcers comparing him to Brett Favre, and the next week he looks like Taylor Heineke again. But I think that right now, with the way that the NFC is laid out, I do think 2 NFC East teams make the playoffs. And I think I agree with you. It looks like it's going to be Washington over Philly. Again, sucks it's not going to be those AFC teams that are far, far, far better than both. But right now, if I had to, put folding money on it, lay down a bet, I'm leaning towards Washington. And that's
Washington has no Chase Young either, which is crazy.
Yeah, I know it's absurd how that ended up working out. My takeaway actually this week is about the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 10-2, and I don't know if you guys would agree with me on this one. They've kind of been under the radar over the past like 3 to 4 weeks. Like you think about conversations about the top teams in the NFC, and you're going to hear people talk about the Packers, the Bucks, and honestly, I think the Rams. And over the past 4 weeks, you haven't really heard about the Cardinals, be it for whatever reason. I mean, I know they were without Kyler. They were without Cliff for a game. D-Hop's been out. But they're 10-2. And one thing I learned actually, when I already knew I was going to do this Cardinals takeaway, I was listening to the Bootleg Football podcast. It's Brett Coleman, EJ Snyder. They do a really good job, but they are 7-0 on the road. They are an undefeated 7-0 on the road, and they've won each road game by over 10 points. And they've done some of that with Colt McCoy as their quarterback. And now, after last week, we saw it with the Bears. They've brought Kyler Murray back into this offense. And my takeaway is that with Kyler Murray under center, they're bringing him back. They are in a prime position to go on a deep playoff run. And I'm really hoping that's a possibility, because I know before the season, I said, I'm not sure, how much I believe in Kyler to go out, win that big game, win in January, win in February. I hope he proves me wrong, but they're definitely in a perfect position to go out and do that. I think if they win this week against the Rams, they've basically locked up the division, a division we thought would come down to the wire, be won on maybe the last day of the year. And the fact that they've gotten through 7 road games so far, and they face the next schedule, only 2 of their next 5 are on the road, and they've proven they can win on the road. I don't know. They're a dangerous team, and I feel like they should be considered possibly the top team in the NFL. And I think a lot of people have been overlooking them, at least in recent weeks.
I wouldn't say that they're going to make a deep playoff run just yet, because Cliff and Kyler have no playoff experience. And it makes me wonder if you get the Packers or the Bucks in round 2 or in round 3, or round 2, if you're saying deep playoff run, can Kyler really outduel either of those guys? In January, I don't know if that's going to happen, but as of right now, yes, they are flying under the radar. I agree with that. And I think my reasoning for that is just because it's Arizona. It's a very small market team, not much history behind that franchise. If this was a big market or a historical franchise, I think we would be talking about them a lot more than we do with Arizona. But 10-2, you're in control of the NFC playoff picture. The defense has exceeded my expectations by miles. I mean, they are really, really good. The schedule isn't, really difficult. So I think if the defense continues at their pace, I think Arizona definitely deserves to be a favorite as we head towards January. But I think in terms of how much I believe in them when January comes, I wouldn't say I'm extremely high on them.
Here's my thing with the Cards. I think you got to put them 2. You can put them 2 right now at the NFC. I'm not going to put them over Green Bay. And Srikar's right. Yeah, Arizona, small market. Here's what I'll say, though, Srikar, for the deep playoff run. If they keep at it at the 1 seed, I think Green Bay and Tampa are going to finish at the 2 and 3. So they'll have to play each other in the divisional round. So I think
that's when
Tampa
it gets interesting.
Arizona will get the 4 seed. Which will probably be Dallas or maybe Washington if they somehow win. And I'm taking Arizona over Dallas. We're gonna see a preview
Dallas
of that.
or LA, right?
No, LA can't be the 4.
LA
No,
5.
if they win
as the 5 seed.
Yeah, you're right. And obviously we've already seen how Arizona's fared against LA. Again, we'll get a better picture of that this Monday, and then we'll also get a better picture of Arizona Dallas when they play. I don't know if it's next week or a couple weeks down the line, but I know they play soon, so we'll get a good picture of that. They're 2-1 with Colt McCoy, so again, Cliff Kingsbury's just been a really, really good coach this year. I think in terms of Jack's takeaway as them kind of being just not talked about enough, I think it's really just because that they haven't had their stars, right? Now they kind of do. Kyler and D-Hop are back. So, I guess we can finally, say okay, this team is, getting the right pieces back. Obviously, they're not going to have JJ for the rest of the season. But, only time will tell for Arizona how they do. I think they will need to have that bye. I think they need it. And here's the thing, though. If they get the bye, right, the NFC will run through Arizona. So they don't have to play in these cold weather games, right? So because they're in a dome. So that also helps them a lot. I think, if they get the 1 seed, right, things will be really interesting, and Kyler really won't have to, go up to Lambeau or wouldn't have to go up to Tampa and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think they need this 1 seed to have a chance. I wouldn't trust them if they weren't the 1 seed, but
absolutely not.
Nah.
He's not winning a snow game against Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau.
Exactly.
But there's a chance in Arizona, under the dome at night. Exactly. I think they could.
This is a guy who played at Oklahoma. This is a guy who, never been in cold weather. So, don't expect any big things out of him. I know he won in Chicago. I'll give him that. And he is a running quarterback, but I wouldn't trust him against A-Rod or, Tom Brady at Tampa.
But I absolutely think you have to have this team as either your first or second Super Bowl front runner.
They're my one. Oh, a Super Bowl. In my power rankings, they're one.
No,
I think Super Bowl favorites, I'd have Green Bay over them.
I got Green Bay at 1 for power rankings, and I got Super Bowl favorites as Green Bay.
But I mean, I'm saying you gotta have them at least at 2.
Yeah, I'm
no more putting Tampa over them. No Dallas, no Los Angeles, not even New England. The Cardinals have proven this year they are a tremendous football team. And I just feel like they're not getting the recognition that they had at the beginning of the season. I feel like it all happened after that Panthers loss. Everyone kind of wrote them off that 1 week. And we just haven't really heard about them now. And Kyler's come back, and it's still the fact that we hadn't heard, or I hadn't at least heard, that they're undefeated on the road and won each game by 10 plus points. They should be getting extreme recognition for that. If the Pats had done that, we'd see it on every Instagram page for 2 weeks. So
you can argue the Cards are the best all-around team in football right now. I mean, I'd listen to an argument for that.
I would too.
I think when we look forward to January, I think that's when my perspective starts to shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, my takeaway is focused on right now. I just think that right now,
I agree.
They've probably built the best resume so far on the season. And I think that right now they're maybe the best well-oiled machine of football. The problem is when you look down the road, you see Green Bay getting some of their players back healthy. They could add 3 all-pros by the time they play the Cardinals. So it's that's kind of when you start to question things a little bit. But if that's all you guys got for the 3 takeaways, would you want to get into fantasy start and sit?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who's going first?
Let's make Jack go first because he went last.
Sure, I'll go first. My fantasy start is T. Higgins. Second time I've done this so far this year. And I know it's becoming a little bit more obvious, but I still feel like he needs to get a little bit more recognition. And I still feel like you look at the name and you see what Jamar Chase has done, and T. Higgins had, a bunch of down weeks to start the year, but he's playing, I would say, better than Jamar Chase as of late. He might still be the better fantasy option. And when I pulled him up a couple weeks ago, I think it was the first time we ever did this, I mentioned how he's the red zone threat. He has been getting more volume than Jamar Chase. And people forget how good he was his rookie year. Last week goes 9 for 38 and a touchdown. Jamar Chase fizzling out a little bit towards the end of his rookie season, still obviously a tremendous wide receiver. But I would start T. Higgins, I think, over Jamar Chase. I think I start T. Higgins over a lot of guys. I'd have him at least in my top 16 wide receivers, I think, and pushing to be a high wide receiver too. I think you got to make sure you have him at least in your flex, if not as a wide receiver 1 or 2.
I agree. I think T. Higgins is definitely a start. And it's also because the Niners pass defense has not been good in recent weeks. And now you're down without Emmanuel Mosley. So you got Josh Norman on one side, Diamador Lenoir, a rookie corner on the other side. I'm assuming he's going to get the looks against T. Higgins. So not a great corner matchup from the Niners perspective. But yeah, I agree with that. My start this week is going to be Terry McLaurin against Dallas. Now, I know Terry has been letting down fantasy owners for the past few weeks. He's been in a bit of a lull. But matching up against Trevon Diggs in this game, Diggs is, prone to giving up a lot of receiving yards. So I think this is the game that Terry bounces back, especially in a divisional fight. I think he's going to get a lot of looks, and I think I'm confident in him bouncing back this week. And if he doesn't, then I'm slowly leaning more and more out on Terry McLaurin, but I believe in him, and I think he's going to bounce back against Dallas.
Yeah, I think Terry's always had some good games against Dallas too in the last couple of years. My start is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, I know usually that is a start, but obviously with the Chiefs offense, it's been kind of a slump in recent weeks. And then obviously the run game is just not something to kind of rely on. But they get a Raiders team that just has been awful on defense, literally like last in every or like 28 to 32nd in like every category in the last month. And I think for Clyde, who's finally back to being at full strength, was on IR for a little bit of time. He had 14 carries and he may do with it, 54 yards. And I think this guy's still going to be potent in getting some receptions in the passing game. So you can kind of rely on him for that. So yeah, that's my start.
Yeah, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire in multiple leagues, and I've definitely been questioning, whether I can actually start him based on the fact that the Chiefs offense hasn't been, as efficient as we expected to be coming the year. And they haven't shown, a particular loyalty to giving Helaire touches. So I've definitely questioned it, starting him in a couple of leagues this week. So my fantasy sit, though, it's actually 2 people in the same game, both, I think, very comparable running backs, Melvin Gordon and Jamal Williams. We saw what Javonte Williams was able to do last week when he got the full load in Denver. He looked absolutely fantastic. It's what we've been wanting to see all season. There's them to give him the touches. And I feel like after that, you're going to see Melvin Gordon, especially coming off injury, missing a week. You're going to see him get less touches. So I feel like try and avoid letting him in your fantasy lineup. And Jamal Williams, we thought with DeAndre Swift out, Jamal Williams would be a better option. But unfortunately, the Lions just, again, kind of like CEH, they're not showing a loyalty to Jamal Williams. It seems like they still want to use a committee. Jamal Williams didn't have a ton of passing upside as you're going to get in this Detroit offense. So I think if you can avoid, keep those 2 guys out of your lineup and in the same game.
Yep. Denver and Detroit both have relatively stout fronts. So both ways, I think they could both be considered sits. I agree with that. My sit is going to be Tevin Coleman. And last week against the Eagles, he wasn't bad. He actually had a pretty decent game. I know he hit double digits, but I don't remember what the exact point total was. And that might tempt people to start him again, but you're going up against the Saints, and the Saints are very strong against the run. And I think this is just a bad matchup for Tevin Coleman. So I think he's my sit this week. Do not be tempted by last week.
I mean, yeah, I think Tevin just doesn't have receiving upside. So
No.
So it kind of sucks. And then my sit, I'm thinking about 2 guys. One of them is going to be DeAndre Hopkins against the Rams. Obviously, he's going to kind of get shadowed by Jalen, and he's still recovering from that injury. Obviously, and he's only been in those last 2 games. He's only been targeted twice. Now, he's made do on those 2 targets last week against Chicago, but 2 targets and against a guy who doesn't even allow your receiver to get targeted much, it's going to be a tough matchup. We'll kind of see with that. And then another guy is just Brandon Cooks. I think the Texans offense is just way too, inconsistent. And I think, last time I said to sit Brandon Cooks, he got a garbage time touchdown, really sucks. But, against Seattle, I just don't know. I think Brandon Cooks has just been too inconsistent for my liking. So if you can, kind of stay away from those guys in your lineups, even though I know it's hard to, bench DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, yeah, good luck to you guys this week. It should be the last week of the regular season for pretty much every fantasy league. So we hope that we were able to give you guys some good advice for the last couple of weeks because we started
the
doing
playoffs
this
for mine in a couple. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck
if 2-week playoffs.
If it is your playoff. Definitely good luck. Go out, win some championships, and send us DMs on Instagram if you're going to win any championships, win any leagues this year. But speaking of winning, we got a new leader in picks. Srikar last week went 11-3 and took over the lead at 118-75. Fans and I went 9-5. We're sitting in second place, one game below Srikar at 117-76. And Anish went 10-4, coming in second on the week, sitting at 113-80. We mentioned it's a slow burn, and now he's only 4 games behind the fans and I.
We're coming back. We are
right back in the thick of
things.
Kind of right back in the thick of things, and we've got 5 games we're picking on camera this week. The rest of them you'll find on our Instagram in the polls. You'll find out who we're picking. But the 5 games, starting it off, Cowboys, Washington football team. We talked about this game a lot already. It's basically, I think, if Dallas wins, it decides the NFC East. And I think they do. I think they kind of seal their fate, pretty much pencil themselves in as the 4 seed in the NFC playoffs, and then get to focus maybe a little bit on that, but not take their foot off the gas too much. I think just this week, while the Washington defense has been good, the Cowboys offensive line has been really good on the year. They're a really stout unit. And I think just with all 3 of their wide receivers healthy now, they've got Gallup, Cooper, and Lamb all healthy. They can really cause some havoc on a team that Washington, while I've praised their defense a lot, I still think they're kind of 1-star corner or safety away from being, a true lockdown defense that can contain an offense that the Cowboys have.
Yep. As we mentioned before, if Washington wins, the NFC East actually becomes somewhat interesting. And I think it's definitely possible. I think Washington's definitely going to be in this game, and I think it might come down to the final possession, but I'm going to side with Dallas because I think they're just the better team, and it's the first meeting between these 2 teams. And in these situations, I tend to go towards who I think is just better on paper, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to side with Dallas right now.
Yeah, I'm going to take Dallas just because I think, look, they have that extra, 4 days of rest, coming off a big win against the Saints, which they didn't really play too well in. I mean, obviously they got those crazy takeaways in the end. So, I guess they kind of want to clean things up against a team that's been pretty clean throughout. But also Washington just hasn't put up points, and you're going to have to put up points against, one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. And I think, again, Washington's kind of been hanging on a thread again against the Raiders, kind of a little bit lucky. So I just think Dallas is too much firepower for Washington to stop.
Next game, another divisional matchup. It's the Ravens versus the Browns. The Browns coming off a bye really tempted me. I really was really tempted into picking the Browns. But I've been stabbed by that sword, stabbed in the back too many times by them. Can't trust them, especially with Baker Mayfield's injury. You just never know what you're going to get when you put that Cleveland offense out on the field, even though they've got Kareem Hunt back, even though they're coming off of a bye. And I really wanted to do it. I got to go with the Ravens. But honestly, a game I see going either way.
Huge game in the AFC North. And with the Browns coming off their bye week, I'm actually expecting their best game in a while. And also the loss of Marlon Humphrey, as I touched on before, that is a crushing loss for Baltimore. So I'm actually going to pick the Browns in this game. I picked against the Ravens last week. It worked out. And I think I'm going to do the same thing this week.
Yeah. So this is the biggest game of the year. If they lose, they're probably out. They're probably out of the playoffs. I'm going with the Browns. This game is I'm tuning into this one. This one's gonna definitely have my heart racing for the night for those 3 hours. But off a bye, hey, come on, man. I mean, this a week 13 bye could not have come at a better time. Definitely get back a little bit at full strength, and no Marlon Humphrey is going to be good considering that this dude is always always getting after it against us. Big divisional game, we need it badly, and I'm going to ride with them one more time.
If this is the game that the Browns win, if this is the big game that they actually pull out and they look like the team they're supposed to look like, I swear to God, I think it's
going to happen.
Don't hop back on. Do not.
I'm not. No, I will not hop back on. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to retire early. I'm just going to be done picking these things because it's like the Bears last year, dude, with Srikar.
That was only for half the season, though. This is a long-running curse.
Just please, don't put faith in them.
I sure hope
Knock on
not.
wood for the boys. Knock on wood for the Browns.
The other game's a game that we mentioned slightly earlier when talking about fantasy. It's the Niners and the Bengals. I was going with the Bengals all the way. Hearing about just the way Srikar is talking about the Niners DBs too only makes me more confident in that pick. I think the Bengals will probably have their way both through the run and the pass. But we've seen they're probably one of the most inconsistent teams in the league, going, beating up on the Ravens huge and then losing to the Chargers, but then almost coming back and then kind of losing by a decent margin. So I'm going to go with the Bengals. I still think, the Niners will funnily enough end up in a better position after this game than the Bengals, which sucks to say.
Man,
dude, pick them.
You better do it.
This is a very evenly matched game. One that has given me a lot of trouble over the past few days.
Is the best receiver from the 2019 class playing?
Yes, it looks like he is. Looks like Warner's going to be back as well. Here's the thing. The Bengals and the Niners are both very talented teams, but they're both flawed. And it's like they're coming into the same situation. If I was not a biased Niner fan, I would take the Bengals because they're at home and Joe Burrow is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. That is if I was an unbiased fan. I'm a very biased fan. I'm taking the Niners. I'm believing in my boys. Oh my God. I had so much trouble with this because I didn't want to sound biased on camera, but here it is. I'm taking the Niners. They're a very good team on the road. I can see this as a potential get right game, and they need this game because, postseason. So I'm going to go with the Niners.
The Niners win.
Oh, yeah. Anish, take them. Take the Bengals.
Please take them.
This helps me a lot. Look, Elijah Mitchell is looking like he can't go. Debo is still yet to practice. Fred's probably going to come back, but I just don't think they have enough guys that are at 100%. I know fans are going to go with the Niners, considering how many Niner fans that we have.
I don't know. I think they'll go with the Bengals,
but they might go.
Oh, this one's tough. Look, and
is it tough because you don't know who's going to win, or it's tough because you just don't want to pick the Bengals?
No, it's not even because I think Cincy is really inconsistent. And I think, look, I think the Niners have a good enough run defense, but I think with Emmanuel Mosley being out too, like who's going to stop their receiving threats, right? Like, I feel like their secondary is just too
we said that about DK and Lockett last week, and they didn't do amazing.
Lockett had 7 catches and a touchdown, and DK
that was
cashed out.
All the way at the
just
end,
just for that, I'm going with Cincy. Just so he can, I'm gonna go with Cincy because
usually when Anish picks against the Niners, it usually works out. So I'm counting on this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cincy. You see, I want the Niners to win. Stop it. I want them to win. Like, you don't understand. If they win, that helps me so much.
Anish is confirmed a Bengals fan, as you can all tell. But we get into the.
I'm gonna just say this though: if the Niners win and the Vikings win, and the Browns win, we're second in the AFC North. I'm just saying.
Wow.
All right.
We move into the 2 biggest games of the week. The first one, Bills versus Bucks. Marquee matchup coming into the year. One of the biggest games in the NFL across the entire 18-week schedule. This one was tough, and trust me, there is definitely an argument for the Bills in this one, but I got to go with the Buccaneers. Tom Brady just doesn't lose these games. He's prone to drop a couple games each year in the regular season to teams he shouldn't lose to, and a couple that maybe he should. But when it gets to this kind of crunch time part of the year around Christmas, Tom Brady is by far the best player, the most clutch player in all of sports. I think he pulls this one out, especially with Tre'Davious White out. If Tre'Davious White was playing, I really would have thought about it. But just to have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin going up against a team that, they still have great safeties, the backup corners definitely are serviceable enough, and they can still, as we saw from last week, even though it was in the wind, snow, and rain, have a very good defense. I just think I trust Tom. I trust the Buccaneers receivers a little bit more than I do the Bills defense. And right now, not sure what I'm going to get with Josh Allen every time he goes out. Pretty sure what I'm going to get from Tom Brady. So I'm going with the Bucs.
This might be a really, really just tough spot for the Bills because you got to think after that Monday night game, I've been kind of wondering, are they just going to come out just flat, like emotionally? I think it's fair to wonder that, especially when you're going against Tom Brady on a short week too. I think the Bucs are going to keep rolling. I got to go with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I got Tampa. Brady owns the Bills. And also, you're going to have to go at Tampa. Short week. Morale lost, as Srikar said. And again, injuries to the Bills secondary, especially Tre'Davious White. And look, I love Josh, but he's not better than Tom Brady. I trust Brady more. And I think, Tampa is just going to keep rolling. They've got too many playmakers for the Bills to stop. And I just think it's going to come down to the Bucs simply just outscoring the Bills, making more plays.
And we talked about this game earlier as well. The Rams versus the Cardinals. Cardinals win. I think they secured the NFC West. Rams win. They at least open the door for a possible comeback to launch themselves, possibly even to being the 1 seed in the NFC if all goes right for them. I'm going with the Cardinals. Again, right now, I think with the way that these teams have been trending, I think the Cardinals are by far the better team. They dismantled the Rams earlier in the year, which I guess probably means that the Rams are going to come back and beat the doors off the Cardinals. But the Cardinals are at home. It's on a Monday. Kyler gets a little bit more rest. He builds himself up. He wasn't great against Chicago, but now he's got another week under his belt, another week of practice to, knock the rust off a little bit. I think I trust him more than Stafford right now. I think that their offense has been more dynamic and has been it's able to change a little bit more than the Rams one, especially with Robert Woods out. This Rams offense has not quite looked the same. So I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals in this one. It could go back and forth, and honestly, it's a toss-up. I'm not going to fault anyone who picks the Rams.
I think this is the best game of the week.
Definitely.
If the Cardinals win, they pretty much clinch the division. If the Rams win, I think we're back to putting them in that contender status as, Super Bowl contenders. This will be a nice road victory for them, but I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. It's just who do I trust more right now? And I think I trust Arizona a lot more than LA. So I got to go with the Cardinals here. Pick them.
You guys know how much I love the Rams. So if the Cardinals win, they actually clinch a playoff spot. They'll be the first team to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But look, aside from week 4, Sean McVay has always owned the Cardinals.
Guess what team he hasn't owned?
I'm trying. Okay. I think the Rams got to look at this kind of like a playoff game. This is like, huge implications for them. They're coming off a big win against Jacksonville. I think they've gained confidence with guys like Odell, even though, I'm not the biggest fan of his. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to take LA. I'm unsure about it. I mean, I guess, I kind of have to go with it now, but look, I think they're going to be extra motivated for this game. I think people are riding the Cards a little bit high. And if the Rams win it, obviously we're going to see some, big implications kind of shift up. And they don't have to travel far. It's an indoor game. You're going to see some, big offensive plays from both sides. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams here.
Man, that's all we got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Good luck in your fantasy matchups. Enjoy Thursday night football, Minnesota versus Pittsburgh. I know Anish and Srikar are rooting for Minnesota. I'm taking Pittsburgh, and I think you fans are going with Minnesota.
Heavily rooting for Minnesota. Come on.
No. We're rooting for everyone in the AFC North except the Browns. But yeah, anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Have a great weekend and enjoy the football on Sunday. We'll be back here next week to break down what we are sure is going to be a very good week. I'm sure we'll have takeaways about Bills, Bucks, Rams, Cardinals, maybe the Cowboys, maybe the Browns. But that's all we got for you guys today. Thank you guys for listening. We've been the Cold Hard Truth Podcast, and we will see you next time.